Okay, we're live, Mr. Chair.
Very good, Chief. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jason Perot, Chairman, and I call to order this Monday, November 8th, 2021 meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen. Before we begin the meeting, let me go through the preliminaries. This open meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Board of Selectmen are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. The agenda, you will find at the top of the agenda the means of connecting to our meeting. You can live stream on YouTube, go to the town website, look for Northborough remote access remote meetings, and you'll be able to click through there. You can also follow along on Northborough Cable Access Television, government channels, Verizon 30 and Charter 192. The Zoom webinar link is posted on the agenda, and also the phone number to call in for audio only to the Zoom session. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream, as I just explained, may do so on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Although this agenda posted tonight does have public comment listed, we have what may turn out to be a lengthy executive session this evening on matters of litigation which require the attendance and services of town council. So for that reason, I'm expecting to go through the main business items on the agenda and not provide public comment for this evening's session. I'd like now to confirm the participation of members of the board. Board members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself and respond in the affirmative. I'm Jason Perot, Chairman. Leslie Rattan, Vice Chair.
Aye, present.
Scott Rogers, Clerk.
Present.
Kristen Wickstead, Member.
Present.
And I'd just like to report that Member Julianne Hirsch is attending to an important family matter this evening and will not be present at the meeting. Staff members, likewise, when I call your name, please unmute and respond in the affirmative. Town Administrator John Coder.
Present.
Assistant Town Administrator Becca Meekins.
Present.
Public Works Director Scott Charpentier.
Present.
Police Chief William Liver.
Present.
And Fire Chief and our Zoom host for the evening, Dave Parenti.
Present.
Thank you all. We also have the services of Northborough Cable Access Television this evening. Ground rules for the meeting. As chair, I will work through the agenda and invite each speaker or applicant by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name, hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others, please do so with a request through the chair. And each vote taken by the board this evening will be conducted by roll call. That concludes our preliminaries. So let's begin with the agenda for this evening. First item is the approval of the October 18, 2021 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Scott?
I move we vote to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Very
Second.
good. Do I, moved by Scott Rogers, seconded by Leslie Rattan. Any discussion? Hearing none. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead.
Aye.
Scott Rogers.
Aye.
Leslie Rattan.
Aye.
And I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Next, it's past the hour of 7 p.m. and we have Kristen Black, Health Agent. First, an update on vaccination clinics.
She's on the way.
Very good.
Sorry for the delay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting me to attend. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you.
Yes, please do.
Sure. So I'll give you a very brief, I know you have a packed agenda. So I just want to give you a quick synopsis on where we are. Let's see, are you guys seeing that PowerPoint screen? Okay. So just let me know, is that okay for all of you?
Looks good to me.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So real quick, I'll just cover the vaccination clinics, our case counts, recommendations for the holidays, and an update on the contact tracing grant award, which I think will be covered a little later. So first, I just want to summarize that we did, since we last met, we did hold a Moderna booster clinic. This was at the Northborough Senior Center. We did vaccinate 407 individuals in town. Many of these were our seniors who were coming back to us because they were first vaccinated with us back in that February through April period. We did extend this clinic till 3:30 and extend the invite to our teachers. So we saw many teachers come through in that 2:30 to 3:30 window. That again was supported by Boylston and Northborough Fire Department, Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health, and lots of local volunteers and SAM and VNA nurses through our contract. We are tentatively scheduling another Moderna booster clinic, November 19th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Senior Center. We're hoping to solidify those plans later this week, possibly Wednesday, and also trying to wrap up some homebound vaccinations at the end of that day on the 19th. So if anyone's interested and still looking for Moderna boosters, so this is for adults who are currently eligible, I'd recommend that you sign up at tinyurl.com and Borough sign up to be notified, or also call the health department. And then what was very exciting is we just wrapped up, and I'm pretty exhausted from the weekend. It was a monumental task. We took on pediatric clinics for our kids. So as many of you know, the Pfizer vaccine was approved for ages 5 through 11 on Tuesday evening. And so we responded very quickly, put into plan some of our long-term plans on emergency dispensing sites, and ran a great clinic at the Melican Middle School. These clinics ran for 4 hours on Friday afternoon and 4 hours on Saturday morning through till 1 o'clock. Each clinic included 35 staff members to pull off this number of vaccinations. And I want you and the public to be really aware that 75% of our staff were volunteers from our community and local medical reserve corps. We had doctors, nurses, dentists, you name it, who really came out and supported our community through this clinic. And I just can't extend, how grateful I am to all of them for making this possible for our families, only 3 or 4 days after the approval, giving our kids the opportunity to receive the vaccine in town. So there were nearly 900 doses administered. We will be holding second dose clinics. Here's a little breakdown. So these are ages across the top row. So, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds are currently eligible. We had the greatest representation was obviously the older kids. I don't know if that's, less vaccine hesitancy or just those age cohorts are a little bigger in the town. Overall, when you look at these 876 doses, we were trying to, well, let me break it down to towns next. So actually, I'll go back to the clinic and how we got the word out. It was really fast. So the approval was until Tuesday. We knew it was in the pipeline. So a backpack notice that you see on the right went into every student's backpack in kindergarten through grade 6. The schools have been fabulous partners in this process. And we ran around and dropped those notices and made sure it made it in every parent's backpack, or at least we hope so. We also notified all of our families who had signed up previously through that Tiny URL sign-up tool. They received a direct notice when the appointments were released. We notified private schools in the area in Northborough. And then, I just want to stress that any families that miss these opportunities can continue to look. There are appointments becoming available at local pediatric offices and doctors' offices, pediatric doctors' offices and local pharmacies. But it's important to sort of understand, how many of our Northborough residents do we really accommodate? So the clinic was open, it was advertised, and definitely the message got out first to Northborough. We did partner with Boylston, and we do continue to work with Southborough through our Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health. So 448 of those 876 doses went to Northborough residents. This invitation went out through the schools, and we also extended to all town employees and their families. So you're going to see that we have representation all over the place. And as social media spreads, we had appointments that ended up opening back up after some cancellations, and people just found out about it on social media and other things. And it was just great to get this many kids vaccinated in our overall community. as well. So some good news on recent case counts. So I was a little doomy gloomy last time I was here. We were seeing a big uptick. You know, we really wanted people to, you know, drill down, be diligent through that holiday season. And it's, you know, it's working. I guess people are being pretty responsible. We didn't see it like Halloween surge we were expecting. So in the last month, so 8th of October through 8th of November, there were 78 positive cases in town. And that's in comparison to about 121 the prior 30-day period. So last time I was here, we were really talking about these high numbers. And so that's great to see those numbers are coming down. 25% of these recent cases, so out of the 78, are in those younger ages. So we're really hoping that vaccination is going to start to continue to curb our positive cases in town. We still are slightly elevated from where we were last year. You know, in a similar time range last year, we saw about 56 positive cases. So it's still something to keep an eye on. That viral load's a little higher than where we were last year. But we are seeing that continued decline over the last 30 days. And currently we only have 16 active cases, which is really good news going into the holiday season. So I just want to briefly cover, you know, CDC, sorry, has recommendations for the holidays. Those are on their website. So the link is there. So if you just search CDC, safer way to celebrate the holidays. So overall, you know, the big push from everybody is vaccination. You know, not only are children currently eligible going into the season where they might be spending time with vulnerable grandparents or other loved ones, but, you know, so the kids have that opportunity for vaccination, and adults should really be looking to find those booster shots if they're currently eligible. And then again, as you celebrate those holidays, looking to wear well-fitting masks if you're in the indoor public setting, if you're not fully vaccinated, and even if you're fully vaccinated, continue wearing it in an indoor public setting in areas of substantial or high transmission, which that's an area we're currently in right now. Outdoors is always safer than indoors, so we're still avoiding crowds where you can, poorly ventilated spaces. And again, if you're sick or have symptoms, don't host or attend. We've heard from so many people in our contact tracing calls, you know, where, oh, I just thought it was a mild stuffiness. I really thought nothing about it, you know, and then meanwhile, you know, we have a household that's going through a difficult time. So I just want to stress to the public that those antigen test kits at pharmacies are pretty accurate, and they're getting very inexpensive. So you can pick up some of the kits, like a 2-pack for, you know, $24 of the Buy Next Now and some other products. So consider having those on hand, and, you know, better safe than sorry. And we do still have that free testing in our area. And again, reminding people to seek testing if they're symptomatic. And then lastly, and I don't know if this is premature, Mr. Chair, you know, do you want me to touch on this?
Why don't we just pause there for a moment, Kristen,
Perfect.
and just take any questions about the progress and the clinics we've offered to date. Board members, any questions? Yes, Scott?
Kristen, thanks for the information, and thanks for reacting so quickly to offer the the vaccinations this weekend. Question for you is, do you have a rough idea of the number of eligible kids in Northborough, like what our ceiling would be on those numbers?
Yeah, so it's tough to line up because, like, when they register, we don't say what grade are you in, and, you know, census data on children is difficult. So I did ask Mary Ellen Duggan with the school. She sent me some numbers. So just based off of the kids in those grades, it looks like we vaccinated around 36% of our children in that 2-day event in town. So, you know, we'd love to see it continue to creep. A lot of people, some were really on board and already had an appointment at CVS or a local pharmacy somewhere else, or they're going to their doctor's office. But I think we hit about 36% of the eligible Northborough residents, roughly.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions or comments, board members? Leslie?
Yeah, as usual, Kristen, thank you very much. I love how much information you give us in about 5 minutes. Very impressive. And I'm so happy about the 5 to 11 clinics happening. I think that is just awesome. And I don't know, is herd immunity still a phrase that's used? And does this just all go toward us hopefully reaching that?
I think so. I mean, I know breakthrough cases has been a setback, and then people are saying, like, well, where are we and how does this help? Like, you know, there's no question that, you know, hitting this last eligible age group, adults boosting, you know, going for that booster is going to get us there. You know, I talked to a senior in town today or last week, and she just said, like, when are we going to be able to take our masks off at the scene? Like, people want to know when's the out, right? and I really feel like, and I think I'm hearing this from, leaders at the state, we are getting close, right? I don't think anyone wants to be rash to make any major changes through the holidays, but I think we're all hopeful that, these kids, right, it's a 2-dose series, and then you're not fully immunized for another 2 weeks after. So it's Pfizer. It's going to follow that same, so it's really a 5-week process to hit that full immunity. So that puts us right before Christmas or the holidays and, all those December holidays. And I'm really hoping, we're going to be looking at a different set of mitigating factors or easing up on some of those mitigating factors in January. So I think that herd immunity and in our community being ahead with the kids, it's going to hopefully keep them in school longer with less disruptions, less interruptions with quarantine, let them continue to play those basketball games all winter and not get stuck home. And I think that's what's really important to stress to the public. Just like adults, if you're fully vaccinated, you've had an exposure, kids are the same, that you don't have to quarantine following exposure if you're fully vaccinated. So if your child is fully vaccinated at school, has an exposure, they don't have to participate in the school's test and stay. They continue to go to school and just monitor for symptoms. So it's going to give all of our residents that bit of freedom we've been looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And I just love seeing the variety of towns that had kids into the clinic. I mean, obviously there are parents and kids who just said, I don't care how convenient this is. I'm hopping in the car right now. I'm heading over. That's what that says. I mean, that's an amazing number of communities. So that's impressive. So thank you so much. And thanks to all the volunteers who helped out with that. That's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Anything more, board members? Okay, very good. The next topic that Kristen will present is acceptance of State Department of Public Health COVID-19 Contact Tracing Grant Award. Kristen.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it's so new. I don't have all that much information on it for you. So contact tracing, again, this is what we call when someone has, we receive a positive result from the state, that there's a positive lab result for someone who has COVID-19. We still, have to go through the process of isolating the positive individual, contact tracing out their close contacts. Those that are unvaccinated are required to quarantine. So this is still mandated from the state, and federal level that we're doing this in local public health, but it's been extremely intensive, like staff time intensive task and crippling for many health departments. So the state has provided this opportunity for local towns to seek additional funds to support their health departments with contact tracing. And this was all timely because many communities were relying on the Community Tracing Collaborative, which the state had stood up and sort of had like a state local, where local towns could refer to the state. And that CTC is phasing out. So for example, Westborough has sent a lot of cases there. Boylston has sent most of their cases there. That's not an option for them anymore. So if contact tracing is still mandated, we're going to have to do it in-house with our existing staff. So this grant opportunity that's been awarded, I'm told it's a, I have to look at my notes exactly to hear from a state person. They said it's rock solid. The money is there. It's rock solid for 2 years. It's federal dollars that are being distributed through the state. And those dollars are already sitting at the state in an account. And so this 2-year award for $160,000, is for the next 2 fiscal years. So a total of $320,000 over that period. And we would be looking to hire, the state's requiring, we have to have an epidemiologist on staff. We can do this as a half-time who would assist us with contact tracing, sort of looking at the big picture, helping with cluster investigations when we see multiple cases pop up. Like supporting our schools, and then also hiring additional RNs or LPNs or other qualified medical staff that can also support to make these calls. What's really exciting is I hope COVID is going to be over, like all of you, and contact tracing will become less of a demand on all of us. But this grant allows us to hire these staff and then to actually use them for other public health purposes in the event they're already completed all their contact tracing duties. So this would allow us not only to meet our contact tracing, but to expand our public health with this, $320,000 over 2 years. So we're looking to build upon the Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health and to add additional staff. In talking with John, we haven't worked out the details, most likely extending our contract with Salmon VNA to bring on additional nurses. So we wouldn't be looking necessarily to hire, as a new town employee, because it is a temporary, it's a 2-year position, but to continue to expand with Sam and VNA. And we've had a great relationship. If any of you have had the pleasure of meeting Erin, she's one of our new nurses that sits in town hall. She's full-time. She's supporting in another RN, who was just brought on. Jim Frederick, who is going to be working in Westboro, and he's a great resource. And so we would be adding additional nursing staff and an epidemiologist to support our department. So it's a really exciting opportunity for our region. There were 13 awards statewide. I'm glad we jumped in where we did. I asked for a lot more money, but they cut us back. They did have too many requests. So it really came down to, it was a dollar figure per capita. I think that each town received, I'm peeking at my notes, it was $3.44 per capita is what our region received for these positions. So it's a great opportunity, a way to build our public health capacity.
Excellent. I have a question. How easy is it to hire an epidemiologist?
So in Massachusetts, we don't use that word or that term or that position as commonly as like other states would. It's pretty common for states or a big city to have an epidemiologist. So we laughed as, we hear about this new federal requirement in local public health, and they're like, so explain to me where I find one of these, right? Like, do you know one? And so there's really no test you would take to be an epidemiologist. Clearly, we want them to have, a background in public health or the sciences or nursing or something along that, either with experience or coursework in the field. So prior to applying for this grant, I did reach out to several towns that received the first round of this contact tracing funding and said, okay, any luck? Did you find an epi, as they call it? And other towns have been successful in finding them. So some of it is hiring the staff that's being released from the Community Tracing Collaborative. There's a lot of people coming out. Boston University is a great program in public health, other schools. So it's not a set credential. So it might be a challenge, but I'm hearing that other communities have been successful with this.
Great, thank you. Members of the board, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to accept funds from the Department of Public Health COVID-19 Contact Tracing Grant from the state of Massachusetts, to authorize the health agent to expend such funds on behalf of the Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health.
Second.
Moved by Leslie Rattan, seconded by Scott Rogers. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead.
Aye.
Scott Rogers.
Aye.
Leslie Rattan.
Aye.
And I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Kristen, once again, thank you very much for all the terrific work. Very happy with the results we're seeing. And I guess good luck for the coming months to get us through that.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, President.
Good night. Next up, it's past the hour of 7:10 p.m. and we have Andrew Dowd, Town Clerk, approval of Northborough's newly updated voting precinct map and an update regarding the new state redistricting maps. Good evening, Andy.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Every 10 years after the U.S. Census is completed and the results of that are released, we're obligated to re-precinct our precincts in the community. And the reason for that is they're required to be balanced in size. And there's also limits on the size of a precinct. A precinct can only contain 4,000 residents each. So the good news, I guess, for Northborough is a couple of things. Our census number put us over the 15,000 mark officially for the first time ever. So officially, the U.S. Census Bureau has our population listed as 15,741 people. 10 years ago, our official number was 14,155. So it's a little over 11% increase. I will add there seems to be some anomalies in the data this year. Obviously, this all happened during COVID. The the numbers were delayed, the process was delayed. So a lot of communities are seeing numbers that they weren't really expecting. And I'd say I'm more in that category where I didn't expect the number to be quite that high. But in any event, that is the official number. The good news, again, is that because we're under the 16,000 mark, our precincts still fit within the 4 existing precincts. So we don't have to add any precincts, which is a good thing for the community. And in order to keep the 4 precincts of approximate equivalent size, all we need to do is make some very slight adjustments to the borders of each precinct. So a few folks, and the numbers will be fairly small, will just have their precinct number changed. And now that all the voting in Northborough happens at the Millikan Middle School, the only difference will be instead of precinct 4, you may be in precinct 2. Those voters that are impacted by that will receive a notice by mail as required to make them aware of that, and we'll certainly put some other information out ahead of next year's elections. This all goes into effect December 31st of this year. So as I said, very little impact to the residents and very slight changes to the borders, and we're fortunate in that respect, because adding a precinct causes some more dramatic changes and some other complications, obviously fitting that within your polling location and that sort of thing. So the state Secretary of Commonwealth's office, in conjunction with the U.S. Census Bureau, they work with us on all this data. This whole process takes for years ahead of the census. They get information from us. We share information with them. And they work with us on the maps, and they, identify any changes that are necessary. So it's a combined effort by a lot of folks on this process. So the board is simply required to approve the new precincts as presented.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Leslie?
First of all, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. I like the word decennial. That's the word of the evening, I think. I haven't seen that in a long time. Also interesting too is that all 4 precincts will be in the same Senate district. Too, I think that's interesting. And that precinct 4 will be Representative Kilcoyne, and then 1, 2, and 3 are in the new 19th district. That's all very interesting, I think. Is there any?
It's actually the next item on the agenda, but I'm happy to cover all that if you like at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead, Andy, and present that bit as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Happy to. So in conjunction with the precinct changes on the local level, the state legislature is required to basically do the same thing with the voting districts across the state. So they have to ensure that the population fits within the existing districts, or in some cases, add or subtract districts based on population shifts around the Commonwealth. And there's some other factors that go into that under the law. That's a fairly complicated process that they follow. They do seek public input, but honestly, the legislature has total control, and it's really ultimately up to them. So the good news is for us and for the voters in Northborough is that it does simplify our representation. So as Leslie mentioned, our state Senate district will be the same for all 4 precincts in Northborough. We've been a split Senate district for years before my time, I think about over 20 years, where we had one precinct, precinct 3, which was represented by Senator Eldridge, and then the other 3 precincts were represented by Senator Chandler. Now they'll all be in the same district, and they'll all be represented by Senator Chandler, who currently holds that office. On the House side, representative districts, we used to be fortunate to have one single rep for the entire town, but that did change 10 years ago when we went through this process. At that point, we were split 2 and 2. So this time it changed again. And we're now going to be split 3 precincts in 1 district, and 1 precinct, precinct 4, which is basically the northern part of the community, will remain in the 12th Worcester district, which is currently represented by Megan Kilcoyne. So the other 3 precincts in Northborough will be represented with, it's a new 19th Worcester district, and they're referring to it as the boroughs district because it does cover the communities of Northborough, Westborough, and Southborough. And so there'll be somebody new, obviously, depending on the results of the election next year, that will represent those folks. So this is basically just information for the board and also for the residents, of course. In this process, the governor actually just signed the redistricting bill late last week. So all of that information is still being finalized and rolled out, and they'll get some more detailed maps and things like that. So it'll make it clear for folks who their rep and senator are, and we'll make sure and list all that on the website, and especially ahead of next fall's election. There'll be a September primary and a general election next November.
Thank you, Andy. Is that to say then that the current representation remains in place until next year's election?
That's correct.
So for this current year, then people will still have the same representatives and senators that we've had to this point. Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion with respect to Northborough's newly updated voting precinct map?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to accept the 2020 re-precincting plan for the town of Northborough as presented by the town clerk.
Second.
Moved by Scott Rogers, seconded by Leslie Rattan. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. So carries unanimously. Andy, thank you and your staff for all the work. And I guess we'll look forward to the informational updates as they appear on the town website.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Andy.
Next up, it's past the hour of 7:15 p.m. and we have Scott Charpentier, Public Works Director, and Fred Litchfield, Town Engineer, to consider implementation of a truck exclusion on Ridge Road and Maple Street.
As you know, we've been doing quite a bit of traffic work in the Bartlett Ridge Maple Street area for the better part of this year and over many past years. Fred's worked with CMRPC on traffic counts for quite a long time in that area. And we most recently conducted traffic counts in May along Ridge, Maple, Bartlett, and Lyman Street. The hope and goal was twofold. One, to marry those numbers in with some other traffic studies that are being done along the Bartlett Street corridor. And secondly, to see where we are when it comes to potential heavy commercial vehicle exclusions. So Fred has a little bit of good news for the board, and I'll let Fred share that with you.
Good evening, and thanks, Scott, for that. You stole just about all I was going to say. The good news is that, as I reported back in August, the counts did show that we had, well, good news or bad news, depending on how you look at it. The heavy truck exclusion requirement is 5 to 8% heavy vehicles. The Ridge Road section of town between Lyman Street and Maple Street did exceed that 5%. So we did submit a report, as I believe you all have a copy, indicating that data. And we did receive approval for that. As part of that request, we also asked that the portion of Maple Street between Ridge Road and Bartlett Street be added to that truck exclusion, as it only makes sense because if trucks were to go in that portion of Maple Street, even though it didn't quite meet the 5%, they would be stuck. It's unlikely or impossible to expect a truck driver to back up from that portion of Maple Street down by Ridge Road where the truck exclusion currently exists back to Bartlett Street. There's no other way for them to get out. And believe it or not, the Mass DOT saw the logic in that and agreed that we could implement a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on that portion of Maple Street as well. So what I'm here to ask you for tonight is to implement that, vote to implement that, and I will forward your vote to Mass DOT, and it will be done. They will send us directions on installing the signs, which will be taken care of once that confirmation is received from Mass DOT.
Very good. Thank you, Fred. Board members, any questions? Leslie?
No questions, just a comment that it makes all sorts of sense. Finally, so it was good to see the truck counts that justify that, and seeing the logic, it just, it does make a lot of sense to finally complete this. Does the state actually pay for the signage and we install?
No, the state doesn't pay for the signage.
They don't?
That comes out of Scott's budget.
Oh, okay.
The state will send us a letter after receipt of your vote. The letter will identify the language that goes on the sign. We can then order the signs, and it takes a couple, 3 weeks for the signs to come in, and then we'll erect them right thereafter.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for all the communications about that, Fred and Scott. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. Yes, Scott Rogers.
Just a continued question about signings. Do the existing signs stay up just as further discouragement if someone did happen to travel down the streets and they got to like Ridge and Maple Street where there are signs now, those continue to stay in place?
We'll likely leave the signs within the corridor, but there's an advance warning sign on Bartlett Street at Maple Street. That sign will come down. That'll be replaced with a truck exclusion sign.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks.
I believe there's also an advanced warning one on Ridge at Lyman, warning about Collins. So that one will come down as well and be replaced with an actual exclusionary sign.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
The goal of the truck exclusion would be that the news gets officially adopted by Mass DOT and then gets sent out along with inquiries from the GPS companies who provide data for GPS units, so that truck drivers will have that information available as part of their GPS and not just be relying on the signs. So hopefully their routes will be amended to go around that entire area.
Very good. John, yes.
Yeah, just briefly, in case somebody's just tuning in and this is the only portion of the process they've seen, it's important just to emphasize that the truck exclusion, although being approved by the Board of Selectmen this evening and goes back to Mass DOT, has its roots in a traffic study. You have to meet the threshold in order for the board to take this vote. And this was some confusion in previous years where we took those traffic counts. The Ridge Road in particular did not meet that threshold, and therefore the Board of Selectmen was unable to take the step that it's taking this evening. And so I know that caused a little bit of confusion for folks because they think that you have the authority to put a truck exclusion. You do have that authority as a board, only if it meets certain criteria based on a traffic study. So I just wanted to clarify that because that was a little bit of confusion in years past. And it may be some confusion with regard to other roads. Why doesn't the board just vote to put a truck exclusion in on another street? It's because it has to be based again on a traffic study approved by DOT and then approved by the board in order for that process to be legal and enforceable. So this is really the last step in a multi-phased, multi-attempt process to get truck exclusions on these roads. And sometimes you just have to wait until you meet the criteria, which we do now. So I just for clarity, just want to make sure everybody understands that process. It's not as simple as the board just taking a vote this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Thank you for the clarification, John. If there's nothing further, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to amend Northborough Town Code by adding to Part 9-108-140 2 1/2 2.5 ton truck exclusion, Section E, Ridge Road from Maple Street to Lyman Street. The alternate route shall be Main Street, US Route 20, Bartlett Street, and Lyman Street, and to replace the existing Maple Street truck exclusion with Maple Street from Main Street, US Route 20 to Bartlett Street. The alternate route shall be Main Street to and Bartlett Street.
Okay.
Moved by Kristen Wickstead, seconded by Scott Rogers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead.
Aye.
Scott Rogers.
Aye.
Leslie Ratan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Mr. Charpentier and Mr. Litchfield, thank you very much for your ongoing work and for this result tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your
Thank you, Mr.
patience.
This brings us to reports. We'll begin with Kristen Wickstead.
Hi, everyone. Let me just put that up. Okay, I'll be pretty quick. The Family and Youth Services Department, I went to their meeting, the Youth Commission it's called. The department is looking for a new staff member. One of the staff is leaving. This cute little department is in the corner of Town Hall. It's a lovely, warm place to work or to visit. The Youth Commission is the group that represents the department, and during their meeting, there was a lot of talk about their budget. I found out that some of the budget needs for counseling services have been filled, which is terrific. The director, June, is working on plans for some new programming, which is also great. The tricky thing is finding replacement for the staff, as it's hard for town budgets to compete with private practice salaries in that area, but you will persevere. Susie Sizlica sent me an email today saying, I have a PTO meeting at the same time as the Board of Selectmen meeting tonight. Could you mention this in your report? So I'll be quick, just pretend I'm Susie. The Jack-o'-lantern contest was a success. We were floored by Northborough's creativity. The winners are one, the Scalone family, winning a Davidian Farms gift card. Second place, the Frick family, winning an Arrow coffee gift card, and three Star Ferretti, winning a Lowe's Market gift card. We were so sad that the weather forced us to cancel the stroll event, but wanted to thank Annalise and her family band for agreeing to perform, and to Tugas Farms, as they were going to donate donuts to our event as well. Last but not least, thank you to the DPW for all of their help with building the beautiful shelf. They are unofficial members of our committee. The second thing she wanted to mention was that the Community Affairs Committee is having their annual tree lighting event on December 4th. So please mark your calendars. This committee is also working on getting a menorah to be placed next to the town Christmas tree. This idea was brought to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and there was a discussion, and it was decided that it makes sense to have to create a certain balance of representation in town. The menorah purchase will be privately funded. She said, also please mention to everyone, the residents were so thankful for the vaccine event this weekend at Melican. It was extremely, so this is, Susie said I could say this was from her personally, as a mom, and she has 3 kids who were vaccinated. It was extremely efficient and well run, so positive and upbeat. We are lucky to live in a community that organized this so well. Thank you to Kristen Black, Fire Chief Parenti, Police Chief Liver, the DPW, Greg Martineau, and Mary Ellen Duggan, and the volunteers who ran it. The Regional School Committee update, I spoke to Karen Aris, and she reported that at the meeting last Wednesday, there was a lengthy update from the medical advisory team. Every grade at the school, at the high school, is over the 80% vaccine threshold. Superintendent Martineau has sent the data into the state. The medical advisory team are recommending they continue with mask wearing until more community data is available. The goal of the medical advisory team is just to keep the students in school, and the school committee approved this 6-1. The mascot study group continues to meet and has set a list of criteria with which to vet suggested mascot names. They are continuing the process and hope to have a finalized list of about 3 mascots in November. And my quote of the week of the meeting is, to make a small town achieve its potential, you need everybody. And that is by Unita Blackwell. All done. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Next, Scott Rogers.
Thank you. So quick update from Open Space is that we're likely to see 4 applications for CPC funds, one to replenish the reserves that allows the commission to purchase a property for open space, as well as 3 projects related to trails at the senior center, the aqueduct bridge, and a feasibility study, perhaps for some expanded use of the aqueduct. Participated in the road safety audit with several of the folks here in the meeting tonight. Just want to say that that was a great event to dedicate that much time between staff and residents and representatives from the businesses, as well as Mass Central Planning and DOT. So looking forward to that report. Great event yesterday in terms of Hometown Heroes. People will have seen the banners up on along Main Street. There was a roll through yesterday, several fun vehicles, and lots of veteran participants. And it was great to see everybody end up down at Memorial Field and have a little bit of a meet and greet there. So thanks to the Borough's Cares for Troops on both the banners and these types of events. Then finally, just prior to this meeting, there was an interview subcommittee meeting. We'll be bringing forth a recommendation on appointment at our next meeting, but it's an opportunity to remind the public that we still have 13 openings on boards, committees, and commissions. So if there's anybody interested in helping out on these committees in these ways, please go to the town website in the boards and committees section and look at those vacancies. And then finally, from Parks and Rec, Ally is looking to both advertise the Northborough Turkey Trot that will happen the morning of Thanksgiving. And I'll have a little bit of information sent to the board. She's requesting help from us if we have the time and inclination. But the public can sign up for the race at www.northboroughturkeytrot.org. And once again, I'll have a note to the board here with Ally's request to help out if we can. That ends my report.
Thank you very much, Scott. Leslie Rattan.
Okay, I first wanted to announce the Scouting for Food Drive, which takes place this Saturday, November 13th. They've done a really good job getting the word out on social media, but I wanted to mention it as well. Residents are asked to put their bags out at the end of their driveways or pick up between 10 and 2. This is a huge event. I know over the years that it has been unbelievable how well they have stocked the Northborough Food Pantry. This is just a huge replenishing event for that. So I wanted to thank the Scouts for doing that. It's a lot of work, picking all that up, and their parents drive them and fill up their cars and have to drop everything off at the food pantry and organize things there. So it's a lot of work. Also, Chief Parenti, I was looking, first of all, I want to thank you for your monthly report, and something that I wanted to point out from last month's report is a wonderful letter that you received from a Kayla Overly, who is in the Department of Neurology at UMass. And I'd like to read a little bit of that. My name is Kayla, and I'm the PA with the Stroke Neurology Service at UMass Memorial Medical Center in Worcester. We'd like to applaud you and your department in their speedy response to this out-of-town call. We are quite aware of the difficulties being faced by our EMS colleagues and the lack of personnel, trucks and crews, and the toll this is taking on all. Yet the response, care, and speed of transport by your department from Northborough to Shrewsbury to our facility was quite impressive. So thank you, sincerely, Kayla Overly. It's a great kind of a letter to receive and says a lot about you and our department. And that was definitely worth the public being aware of these kinds of things that happen.
Thank you.
Also in your monthly report from this month, just a couple of points I wanted to make here or notice about your report is that on October 11th, members assisted with coverage for the Boston Marathon in Hopkinton. provided ambulance with 3 members to cover part of the race route, and Chief Parenti served in the EMS Incident Command Unit as Treatment Sector Officer. That's wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing is I didn't have to do anything, so that was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were there gave everybody peace of
Thank-
mind. And you mentioned that while running through the statistics for this month, I noticed an interesting fact. Over the last 3 years, we ran the same exact number of incidents for the month of October, which is 186. That's
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, it was very strange. I thought something was wrong. I ran them like 3 times and they kept coming back the same way.
So see, kind of some seasonal things that seem to happen.
Yeah.
And as far as your report, I didn't know if you wanted to explain a little bit about the large donation that we received.
Oh, the for the boat, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a very nice gentleman in town who every so many years comes forward to the police and fire department and makes a donation to each of us. Mr. Mallet. Mallet, is that the proper bill? Is that the proper Mallet, right? And really nice gentleman. And he comes forward and says, "What do you need?" I said, "Well, we're looking, our boat's like 25 years old and we need a new boat." He says, "Okay, go find one." I'm like, "What?" Hey, so we go out and we look and we found a rigid boat that is being made overseas now, and it looks like an inflatable boat, but it's not, and we can actually run it into things. And the important point of that is normally when we're in the water, conditions aren't that good. So there's logs, there's rocks, there's all kinds of stuff, and this boat will stand up to it. So the boat came in and he had given me a number for the donation. I said, "Okay, here's the amount and we'll just pay the balance." He says, "Well, what's the balance?" And I told him, he goes, "No, I got that too." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You need a motor?" I said, "Stop." I appreciate it. Yes, we're good with a motor. Just a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Him and his wife came down and I told him we'd give him a ride in the boat when the weather turned. Terrific gentleman, very excited to have it. It was the total donation was a little over $5,800.
Oh. Well, that's wonderful. We're very grateful
Yes.
for Kevin and Erla Mallet.
Yep.
So, I mean, that says a lot about them as individuals who care for their community, and it says a lot about our department and how they feel about you and the work that you do. So,
Yeah. They're both, and this is the first time I've had the chance to interact with them, and just terrific. Really, really nice, very giving. And they're out in Arizona right now because it's too cold for them here. They'd like to spend around Arizona.
that's great. Thank you, Chief. Wow. And I also wanted to mention the meeting and walkthrough that we had at the high school and all along Bartlett, all the way down to Cedar Hill and then back all the way to Bartlett, which so it was a nice walk, got some good exercise in, and got to hear a lot of good information from the CMRPC. They provided information, they solicited suggestions and thoughts, and were very responsive, I thought. And it was great to take a walk and have them and all of us point out some things along the way that we had noticed, and to see things firsthand. So I thought that was really, really well done. It was long, but I think it was definitely worthwhile. So I will await their report as well. That should be very interesting. I have also been asked to announce the Troop 101 resale. This is a fantastic fundraiser by Boy Scout Troop 101. They every year sell wreaths online. You can order online, and they deliver to your front door with a nice bow. It's $15 per wreath. They are on a 14-inch frame. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful and definitely worth it. But there is an order and pay online at a specific link. I know that this is all over social media as well. It wouldn't make sense for me to read this link here. But it's their largest fundraiser. All money support the troops' trips, camperships, maintenance of equipment, and supplies. So they're very grateful to residents, and they're hoping that people will take advantage of that and order a wreath or two this year. So I want to thank them very much for that. Yesterday, I also wanted to mention that the Hometown Heroes Parade, I actually headed down toward the end point of it, so I didn't see the parade itself on Route 20, but from what I understand, there was a wonderful crowd of people who showed up and clapped and waved flags and really, I think it was a wonderful honor to all our veterans. And the fact that there are that many banners along Route 20 that keeps expanding. I noticed they're all the way down in toward, as you pass that plaza where Lala Java Coffee is, you know, they just keep going. And I think it's wonderful. It grows every year. And Burroughs Cares for Troops does a fabulous job organizing that. And I think it was important to the veterans. They got down to the end point at Memorial Field, and there were sandwiches that had been donated and drinks. And I think it really was a nice day, and the weather turned out really well for them. So that was fantastic. I attended the recent K-8 meeting. It was great to hear the principal Carv's report and also her school improvement plan presentation. A lot of interesting stuff going on at the middle school. I used to think of the middle school as kind of the law school that you know never really heard a whole lot about, but a lot happens there. And it's a real pivot point for a lot of kids before they get to the high school. So I want to thank that committee, the Northborough School Committee, and Principal Carr for her work. And finally, to echo Scott, the interview subcommittee, we met this evening, and we're always in need of good volunteers. So it's important to have people involved, and there are lots of interesting things happening in town, a lot of different kinds of committees. So please consider that. So thank you very much. That ends my report.
Thank you, Leslie. For my report, I would just like to add my thanks to Burroughs Cares for Troops for the event, the rolling rally this weekend for Hometown Heroes. Certainly it's grown quickly in a short amount of time, and appreciate the support of the public to come out and honor the veterans. I'll just note that this Thursday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. And so on that day, please keep them in mind once more. And that pretty much concludes my report. So, John, anything to add?
Just wanted to follow up on something that was brought up at the last meeting by Leslie Rattan, and it's pertaining to the board's packets, their meeting packets. So by consensus, it was agreed that we would get these packets up. So they are up. So today's meeting, the packets are up on the website. You can get to them through the Board of Selectmen webpage, or if you go to the home page, and there's the calendar that shows you all the meetings. So if you go to the calendar and click on today, it shows all the meetings that are taking place. And if you click on the Board of Selectmen, it takes you to the agenda as well as the packet. So if anybody wants to see the materials that the board has that they're working off of this evening, it's up on the webpage. And as we said, we'll continue to do that moving forward.
Right. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, John. That concludes reports. As I announced at the beginning of this meeting, I'll repeat it again here. We're passing over public comment this evening. We have a fairly significant executive session requiring services and the participation of town council. So in the interest of time and making the best use of that time later this evening, we're going to just proceed with the remainder of the agenda. So under new business, discussion regarding Senate Bill 499, an act regarding agricultural composting programs. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you are all aware, out of our legislative priorities for the last 3 years has been a bill that was sponsored on our behalf by Senator Chandler, and it's pertaining to composting, specifically large-scale agricultural composting operations. Just by way of background, if you want to run a large-scale commercial composting operation, you would have to go through all the normal land use approvals and regulations and zoning, with the exception of if you're a farm, you can bypass and you're exempt from all that. And what we've seen here over the last decade is we've had at least 2 sites that have caused some significant concerns and issues for neighbors. Again, last year, we submitted this legislation, but due to COVID, they didn't take up anything that wasn't absolutely critical because they weren't meeting in person. Prior to that, the legislation did pass the House, passed the Senate, it passed the conference committee, and went to the governor, who unfortunately vetoed it. So we have resubmitted the legislation. It is known as Senate Bill 499. The prior bill was Senate Bill 435. Again, this is on the Senate bill itself, 499, as well as the material that I'm referring to right now is available on the webpage. But essentially, between your last meeting and this meeting, we got a very short notice that they were holding a hearing on our bill. Usually we get little more than about 48 hours notice. So I did testify on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. And again, this is the legislation is the same as we proposed the last time. So our position as a community, hasn't changed. So I had just updated the support letter that the board had sent in previously. I got that filed. You have a whopping 3 minutes to make your case. So I used the 3 minutes to testify on on behalf of support for the legislation. I did also reach out. The MMA, the Mass Municipal Association, will be filing a letter of support for our legislation as they did previously. But just to get to the root of the issue, so the Department of Agricultural Resources, which is a department within the state structure, is responsible for overseeing composting operations if they're being done on a farm. So they have their own rules and regulations. The town and municipalities in general have no authority and no role in that process whatsoever. And therein lies the issue, is that when there's a problem with a composting operation, the residents expect the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, the local officials to step in and take corrective measures or to deal with the problem. We have no authority. So we wind up going back to DAR, back to DEP, and you've all been around long enough to know that that's not a very effective approach. So the modification to the general law, we added that DAR still is going to oversee the programs. However, and this is what we've inserted in the Mass General Law, that any such rules and regulations shall require that all composting projects and facilities comply with local zoning, land use, conservation, and health ordinances, bylaws, and regulations, including but not limited to requirements regarding setback, separation distances, odor, dust and debris, types and quantities of material, and sources of material, on-site versus off-site. So, so we have submitted, again, the legislation. It has made its way, right now, it's made its way through the House and the Senate, and it is before the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture. That's the entity that held the hearing. If they report out favorably, then it goes to the full legislature and then hopefully to the governor. But if anybody would like to add, despite the fact the hearing was on November 3rd, and there is technically no deadline for when you can submit written testimony, but in general, they like to encourage you to submit any written testimony within 2 weeks of the hearing. That way, if they take up action, that's a reasonable time frame. But if you go to the mass.gov and you look up the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture, you can go to their hearing page, and there's an email, which is also in the memo that's on the town's website with this packet information. But there's an email, jointcommittee.environment@masslegislature.gov. And anybody who would like to submit testimony is welcome to do so. But I would encourage you, as I said, to do that within the next week or so. And I will keep you updated as this moves forward. This is the third attempt at submitting this legislation. And although we have not been successful in the past, I do think we have been successful in getting the attention of DAR, DEP, the state, as well as the operators in Northborough. And that leverage of submitting this legislation, I think, has helped us in managing some of the operations. And by the way, we had two very large composting operations in town. One has voluntarily ceased operation. The other, up on Whitney Street, this is SA Farms, has required the Attorney General's office and DEP to take legal action to deal with some of the unintended negative consequences of what was taking place on that site. So that operation is under a settlement agreement with the Attorney General's office. It took the AG's office to get involved to manage this, because that's how ineffective the existing regulations and processes with the Department of Agricultural Resources. So despite the fact that one of the two has ceased to operate, the other, through intensive. It took almost 2 years of the Attorney General's office to take care of and get that situation on Whitney Street under control. So despite the fact that it appears that the two issues that we've been dealing with for many years in Northborough are sort of under control, the simple fact of the matter is the legislation is still needed, because tomorrow any farm can engage in large-scale composting operation in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And the fact of the matter is the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, and town officials have no control. We're not the permitting nor the enforcement agency for those operations, and we would not be able to control another nuisance situation. So that's why the legislation is still, in our opinion, required. And that's what was explained to the committee during the hearing. And if you read the submitted testimony, that pretty much says the very similar thing. So the Mass Municipal Association, their letter also on behalf of all municipalities in Massachusetts will encourage the adoption of this Mass General Law amendment as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. But for those of you that have been around, this is nothing new, but it is a third swing at this legislation. So hopefully the third time is the charm.
Thank you very much, John. Questions or comments, board members? Leslie.
Yes, thank you, John. I know this has been a long road for, you've done so much work on this and attended so many things. And I remember going to something, I even forget where it was, Foxborough?
Yep.
You know.
One hearing was in Foxborough, one was in Rabbit Hill in Westborough.
Exactly, yep. And they seem like forever ago. And of course, you always think at that point, there's going to be a turning point and something's going to happen soon. It's just amazing that it's taken this long for this issue. As far as providing testimony, ultimately, would it be helpful for, you were testifying on behalf of our board. Would it be helpful for any of us individually to submit anything, or is there something that could be done on behalf of the board?
Yeah, so the letter that's in your packet was sent on behalf of the board.
Yeah.
Obviously, the hearing announcement took place in between your two meetings. So sometimes it just depends on when it falls. I would have just brought the letter, asked the board to take a vote of support. But unless I went out on a limb and you can tell me if I was wrong, I'm assuming the board, since the board did ask Senator Chandler to submit the legislation again, I'm assuming you're in support of it. But anybody as an individual can submit any testimony that they would like.
Thank you.
And by the way, there was nobody else. There was nobody at the hearing testifying in opposition. So I probably shouldn't say that, but doesn't mean that they won't submit in writing after the fact. So, but it was not. There wasn't a big focus this time around. I'm not sure. Maybe it flew under the radar, but still needed and important. And I think Senator Chandler has been very, very solidly in our corner advocating for this over the last 3+ years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Liz.
And this needs to happen, as you point out in your information, though we have kind of two sites that are more or less not happening anymore, doesn't mean that something else can't pop up. And the residents over in that area on Whitney Street were just put through hell, excuse my French. And it just went on way too long, and it was an awful, awful situation. So this can't happen soon enough so that something else is preempted.
So I will keep the board updated as that legislation makes its way through, hopefully gets reported out favorably by the joint committee, and then we'll track it and let you know where we're going.
Great, thank you very much, John.
Okay.
As you said, there's composting is composting. There's no difference between a non-farm-based composting and a farm-based composting operation, and there doesn't make any logical sense to have two different regulatory structures providing oversight over those two things.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, execution of cemetery deeds 1133 1134 and 1135.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to execute cemetery deeds 1129, 1130, 1131, and 1132.
I think we have a stale motion written down.
Those, I think that's a,
right.
I think
That's
that's a motion from, yes, let me
That's different.
So
just. take a look.
1133, 1134, and 1135
Yeah.
are the deed numbers.
Okay, should I just reread that?
Yes, please.
Sure.
So that is correct. What's on our agenda then is correct. Yes.
Yes, correct.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to execute cemetery deeds 1133, 1134, and 1135.
Second.
Moved by Leslie Rattan, seconded by Kristen Wickstead. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Any other business to come before the board? The only thing before the board for the remainder of the evening. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3, litigation regarding pending land use litigation. Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000046. Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000380. Isomedics Operations Incorporated doing business as Steris AST versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000436. And Abu Construction Incorporated and Ka Realty Incorporated versus Town of Northborough and Northborough Planning Board, Worcester Superior Court Civil Action Number 1985, CV 00178. Due to the chair's determination that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the planning board and or the town. Do I have a motion essentially of the same substance?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Having
move
announced the agenda item,
I move the board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3, litigation regarding pending land use litigation. The Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000046. The Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000380. Isomedics Operations Inc. doing business as Steris AST versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000436. And Abu Construction Inc. and Ka Realty Inc. versus Town of Northborough and Northborough Planning Board, Worcester Superior Court Civil Action Number 1985, CV 00178. Due to the chair's determination that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the planning board and or the town.
do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Scott Rogers, seconded by Leslie Rattan. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. The board will now move to executive session. This concludes our business for open session. Open session will be concluded and no further open session business will be conducted this evening. Thank you all very much.